And he said he's going to put a white card. And he said, I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to put a white card out. I'm going to show them. And I said, no. I said, that's exactly what they want you to do. If you don't vote for them, and there's propaganda that is used in media and through their channels, they tell you to put a white vote in. But the white vote means they're actually going to get that vote because it's not a vote for anyone else, so no one else is going to beat them.
J'ai eu le temps de réfléchir sur la condition humaine.
Daizy Gedeon, welcome to Sarde.
Welcome to Sarde.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you here. We watched your latest documentary called Enough. It's a documentary about Lebanon. First and foremost, we wanted to ask you, so what do you do? Are you exclusively a documentary filmmaker?
This is only my second film ever.
Okay.
I'm primarily a journalist and always will be, and I love the written word. But I'm also a businesswoman, which I've been doing for the last 20 years, being in marketing. I have a marketing agency. But, filmmaking is part of who I am in that it's a story and it's all part of storytelling.
Yeah, we noticed there was a lot of storytelling involved in that documentary, Enough. And we noticed also you started it in 2017, if we're not mistaken, and it got released until now. Right, so we're talking about 5 years in the making. So is that the usual timeline of a documentary? I feel like that's not really.
No.
So what happened? Why did it take so long?
I actually started researching in 2016, and then we were ready to come over for our initial film shoot in 2017. And I thought by 2018 it would be done. I'd always wanted to come back again in 2018. Because I thought we wanted to film the winter season in Lebanon. So we had come in a summer season in 2017, and so we had planned to come back. But what happened after 2017 and the first shoot and the information and the weight of what I discovered transformed the film completely. And so 2018 became coming back for the elections, not for ski slopes and, because originally the film was not what it is today. But it does take a lot of time, but this took absolutely much longer than anticipated. It should have been finished 2018, 2019.
You live in Australia, in Sydney.
Yes.
Yeah, it has to be precise because in the beginning of the documentary you say it, and you started you started with Sydney, with Lebanese expat there.
Yes.
And you wanted to do a happy documentary about Lebanon, and when you digged into this country, and especially during the election, you realized that it wasn't happy at all.
So what was the initial idea behind it, and what is it now for people that might not know?
The initial idea was exactly what you just mentioned. It was, I had been coming and going to Lebanon for 20 years, and I had seen change, and I could see the facade was beautiful. Downtown was rebuilt. People were going out. It was fun. You can go out, and it seemed like it was on the way back. And so I wanted to make a film about the Renaissance, the revival of Lebanon after the 15-year civil war. And I honestly believe that was the story I came to tell. And I spent 6 weeks in that first film shoot meeting people everywhere, from the north to south, east, west, inside, whatever, it was everywhere. And as much as I tried to ask nice questions and happy questions, for the first time in my life, because Lebanese are very good at making it all look good.
Absolutely.
A smile on the face and never wanting to say anything bad about Lebanon. And لا يعني نحن منيح و يعني أحلى بلد نحن أعظم شعب. It was the first time in my life I actually saw people talk about hardship and difficulty. And this one guy, he came to the hotel to meet with us, and he looked me in the eye across the table and he said, "Are you going to tell the real story? are you going to tell our true story? And it hurt me. It hit me. It was like, I really have to listen properly.
And what year was that?
That was 2017.
2017. Okay.
That was 2017. And I went back to Australia. And I say listen properly because, you know, there's this saying, already always listening. It means that you've already decided what you want to say or what you want to think or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had decided I wanted to make a happy film, but this guy cut through and I said, no, this is right. And it was already there in the footage and the interviews. When I went back in 2017 and revised the interviews and listened, there was a noise in my head of people, the screaming, the pain. And I don't know if you remember that year, but Pink released a song called What About Us?
Yes.
And I swear it was the only thing playing in my head. It was the Lebanese were screaming in my ears saying, what about us? And that's when the change happened. And I had to come back in 2018 and it was a completely different focus. And I brought on a massive crew, like we're coming full ball, all guns loaded, got the crew, got the DOP from Hollywood. He's Australian though. And the reason I picked him, I say Hollywood just because he happens to be living there and working there, but Australian award-winning DOP who had come to Lebanon only a few years earlier to shoot a segment for Oprah. And I loved the sensitivity with the way he'd shot the film. And I said, he's my man. And my producer said, he's probably going to be busy. He's doing all these shows. And we called him. We said, this is the window. And he said, it's amazing. I'm free for this window only. And I said,
no, it's a very well shot documentary, by the way.
Yes, and what is very interesting that you have friends in this documentary.
Definitely.
You have people that you crossed everywhere, and these politicians.
They interviewed politicians.
You interviewed politicians. It was in 2018, around the election, right?
And not just any
17,
politicians.
18.
We're talking about Gibran Basil, Saad al-Hariri, who was also...
Nohad Mashnou.
Was it Nohad Mashnou?
Yeah.
I didn't interview him.
No, you didn't?
Just, we grabbed that.
Yeah,
That's
grabbed
screen grab,
that,
yes.
yeah.
And there was also Samir Jaja.
Yes,
Right,
and
was also-
Misbah
Salim
Ahdab, Salim Jaisati.
Dr. Inaya Zadin, Mohammed Afnaish.
Yes.
And there's many more that I didn't put in the film. I have a full list, but I put in the most important, like Ashraf Rife. I can't tell you the number of people. Rababa Sadr, I know she's not a politician, but I actually loved interviewing her. She was amazing.
And a lot of expat, a little bit everywhere in the world. How was these interviews with this politician at this time? Because when you watch it in 2021, it's you're not shocked because now we're used to it, to see them lying all the time. And
Yeah, you shot them in 2017 and 2018, right?
and
Yes.
2018, and
Yes.
it's the same lies today again.
Yes.
And again, Saad Hariri at this time was prime minister.
Yes.
And they were all talking about the thing that we kept with Muayin. It's that they are all of them talking about corruption. And at this time, we didn't know so much about corruption in Lebanon. We had this garbage crisis in 2015, and now we know. After 2019, after the October 17, we know everything. But at this time, what was your reaction in front of these people that today we know that they're lying?
Yeah. It was I was a bit nervous, obviously, but I honestly I had set out my questions. There were 6 pages of questions, and for some of them I had to submit the questions. But I believed that I had one chance. And like Hariri, it took 18 months to get the interview.
Oh, wow.
And the others, like even Mohammed Fnaish, it took 18 months. Like the year before, like from December 2016, sending emails and letters to say we're coming, we're going to do this, we'd like an interview. Like, you've got to warm them up.
How did you pitch it to them exactly?
The happy
vibe, happy-go-lucky.
I thought I was doing a happy film.
Okay.
But then they, the ones that wanted the questions, we gave them the questions because there was, talk and definitely evidence of corruption. So they were all happy to talk about corruption because they were all happy to point the finger at somebody else.
Absolutely.
And as you saw in the film, it's never me. It's always them or him or whatever. And so, as you witnessed, it's shocking to see them so openly, especially Basile with some of the things he says. It's shocking.
It's very shocking.
I actually thought he was a good guy. From one of the interviews, I thought, this guy wants to end it. This guy wants to bring down the establishment. This is our guy. Like, yes. And then, I dug in
and we see the reaction on your face. What did he say?
So he said, when you asked, I'm going to ask you. So what did you ask him? What was his response?
I said to him, if you're all in agreement about corruption, like corruption is killing the country, what are you going to do about it? And he's saying, he responds with anti-state phenomenon. Is that right?
Some big brain words.
Anti-state phenomenon. I said, what does that mean? And he said, it means you can't have a state with corruption. It's impossible. You have to eliminate corruption. But to this day, I still don't know what that means. Like, I
don't even think you know.
I looked it up. I couldn't find it on there. Like, it's just not a real expression.
What's great is that you're not a media personality. You're not part of a TV station. So when you said it's just one shot, you really went all out. And right now, when you're talking to us about these politicians, it's not like you're mincing your words. You just tried your chance. You don't care how they're going to react to it. And it's very liberating to a certain extent because at least in Lebanon, the media institutions usually try not to vex these politicians in hopes of having another interview with them at a later stage. Because as we know, a lot of our politicians say for a very long time in public office. So it's great. And right now, my question is, with this negative light, well, not really negative light, you just portray them as they are, right?
That's it.
You ask them a very simple question: what is corruption? They kick the can. You ask them very hard-hitting corruptions. You actually speak to Saad al-Hariri and you tell him, listen, you're pointing the finger at other people, or you're pointing the finger at the ether. But a lot of people say that you're part of that system. And his reaction was, you could see in his body language how he changed. His hands started like fiddling around. Is there a risk of this documentary being banned in Lebanon? We don't know by the time of this shooting, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely high risk of being banned, definitely, because it doesn't make any of them look good. The top notch. I say there's 8 people in the clan that because I throw Riyad Salami into that group as well. And it's not as if I went after them. I just looked at who are those that are making the most powerful decisions and have the greatest influence. And you have to start with them because then all the others are just cronies, exactly. It was a bit nerve-wracking saying that to Hariri, and I saw his eyes. I don't know if you noticed his eyes, yeah. And he sort of tensed up a bit, but but this is the man you have to ask the question of. He's a prime minister, he's running the government, and honestly, I'm there. As I said, I'm speaking on behalf of the Lebanese in Lebanon, around the world. They don't have the chance to sit here in front of him, but I did, and I had to represent you. I had to represent us. It was like my role right now is the people. I have to give the voice of the people to these leaders. And, I got pushed aside at the end by his, media advisor. And you didn't say you were going to ask this question. You didn't say you were going to ask this question.
Oh, wow.
Because we actually ran out of time because they'd given me half an hour with him.
Okay.
And
18 months and half an hour. But he loves making people wait. You know, when he wanted to create this government, he took 1 year, 400
and he
days.
makes people wait for interviews as
Yeah.
well, apparently.
Yes.
But we got to that point, and I think somebody said, it's half an hour. Do you want to wrap it up? And I said, if the Prime Minister is willing to continue, I'm very happy to continue. He said, yes, sure. And his media person, I'm sure, was going, no, no. So I got another half an hour so I could ask Hezbollah questions, I could ask other questions, and she was not happy at all. But anyway, that's what you do. You take your advantage of the opportunity, and you that's your last chance or one chance. And
Did they tell you at some point, regardless of whether it's Hariri or Basil or whoever it was, or Mohammed Fnish, did at some point they tell you that please remove this question or please remove that segment?
No.
They tried to. Okay, they didn't.
no,
Not even today, when they knew that you're going to release the...
they haven't seen it yet.
They haven't.
No one's seen it in the government yet, except for Al-Arm, and I don't know if they've shown it or talked to anyone, but no one's seen it yet. So, yeah.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, usually when a film is going to be screened or going to be put out in public, it goes through the
Censorship board.
censorship, section of the government, and they kind of either they ask you to remove sections of it, or they just ban it altogether. Are you willing to remove these sections?
Nothing. Zip. They got zero chance.
Okay.
I mean, look, I didn't make this film to become famous. I have spent a fortune of my own money, and I've compromised my business. I've left my kids over and over again, and I haven't done it because, I want to become a big name. There's a mission here. There's a cause. And if we don't do it now, if I'm not going to do this now and put it all on the line now, I might not have a Lebanon that I come back to. And I love this country beyond belief. Like, I love Australia, but this is different. I don't know how to articulate it. There's no words. It's in my DNA, and I will do whatever it takes to defend and project the truth and tell the world, because it needs to be on a global platform in English for the global leaders to understand, but it's going to be in multi-languages so many people around the world can hear it. But this is my role and my responsibility.
So in the first place, when you decided to make this documentary, who was the audience that you were thinking about? The diaspora, the non-Lebanese people?
So it really was for the diaspora, because I'd made a film 25 years ago, and that film was called Lebanon in Prison Splendor, and Omar Sharif was a key character in that. He spoke brilliantly and recited the poetry of Khalil Gibran. And that was my awakening of who I was as a Lebanese. I thought I was Australian. I didn't want to have anything to do with being Lebanese. So this time around, there were so many people who remembered my first film, and that for years I kept saying, when are you going to do the next one? When are you going to make the new film about Lebanon? There's changes. And I kept saying it needs time, like things have to move forward. And that was really the instigation, was people were still saying, you need to go and make the new film. You need to go and make the new film. And so that is what triggered the desire and then the original story for the film. So I've lost the question completely now. What was your question?
No, it was who was the audience, the first audience.
The audience. So yeah, it was for them. It was for them because they loved the first film because it connected them with Lebanon.
I think you just started thinking about Omar Sharif, Khalil Gibran.
Oh my God, he's so naughty. He's so naughty. I could tell you some stories, but we won't go there.
What is very interesting that in your movie, so your documentary 25 years ago, it was Omar Sharif, and one of the main character in this documentary, is Tom Fletcher.
Yeah.
And I remember when he left the embassy and this letter that he wrote to Lebanese people, and he reads it. He reads it, and I was, oh my God,
So
I
for
remember
people
what
who
he
don't know,
said.
who is Thomas Fletcher?
the ex-UK ambassador who spent 5 years in Lebanon, and he has this particular link to Lebanon and love for Lebanon. It's amazing. And this letter that he wrote, till now, it's
still relevant.
Famous.
Yes,
Famous.
it's a love letter.
It's a love letter.
It's a love letter.
And I discovered it when I was doing research. You know, I was trying to dive in and learn as much, and I discovered this. I think it was like 2018, and I discovered it. I was crying, and I was like, no one has captured the essence of Lebanon so articulately and emotionally and beautifully as he did. And there were 2 letters that I melded together, the dear Lebanon, and the last one was okay, yalla bye. I love that line. And so when I discovered them, I said, this man, he has to read it. I have already I saw it. I saw him reading it in the film, and I could see the vision. And it was like, I want to ask you, when you heard his words, when he was in the film, how did that make you feel about your Lebanon, about someone saying that and describing it? I know you may have known it before, but you probably hadn't heard it for a long time. But
when I watched your documentary, I got emotional several times, and I started to cry in the first few minutes because it was about August 4th blast, and everything came back again. And I think that for me, it's hitting me now, a year and a few months after. And when I listen to him, and I think that nobody can take the essence, like you said, of Lebanon better than a foreigner.
Yes.
Better than someone who is not Lebanese.
Yes.
And he quoted so well. So well. I don't know, what was your reaction when you heard him?
Well, my reaction was, as soon as I saw the explosions, obviously the PTSD is very real.
Yeah.
Right? And, it starts off with the explosions. I was just looking at media, and you would see her like jump. And so I would try to lower the volume every single time. There would be like a section about the August 4th.
I started to cry.
I think my reaction was, I found it fascinating how, not just Tom Fletcher's letter, but how you were able to shed a light on this political class that is still the same, and how they constantly regurgitate the same lies, same line, corruption, kicking the can left, right, and center, and there's absolutely no accountability. And what I also loved is how you were able to portray these multiple forms of corruption, because I think in Lebanon, what's very particular about this country is that we have 2 forms of corruption. We have first world corruption, and we have third world corruption. First world meaning you have white collar crimes. I mean, not long ago, the Pandora Papers were released.
Yes.
And we are the #1 country which has the most offshore bloody accounts in the world. So there's that. So when I'm talking about white collar crimes, we're talking about money laundering, back channeling, assets
Insider
being trafficked,
trading.
insider trading,
Yeah.
absolutely. And on the other hand, you have third world crimes, which is dictatorial, militia-like behavior, strong arming people, usually with intimidation tactics, weaponry, and what have you. And we have this perfect blend of these 2 kinds of corruptions, which make Lebanon what it is. And it's pretty terrifying because we have the worst of both worlds. And you portrayed it pretty well and very clearly with, you had animations saying what was happening. And I left the documentary with a sense of frustration but hope at the same time, because you do talk about the opportunity that comes out, right? There's always a message that you try to convey, which is we have to subscribe to institutional change. We have to go and vote. We have to promote this kind of reaction from people.
And this is so important, because if we really want to come of age as a nation and as a people, then we have to do it the right way, because that's a true demonstration of evolution. Because if we do it the old way and fight and weapons and stuff, we're still backward. But if we, use the system and use democratic means and peaceful means, then we evolve. Like every country in the world has gone through their civil wars and their eras of, degradation and divisions and fighting and this. America, Britain, look at all of them, France, they've all had that. And they evolved into this wisdom and this civilization, a civilized way of behaving. And we have to do that. It's like a what do they call it? A path of I can't think of the expression.
Redemption? Is it a redemption arc?
It's like I can't think of it right now.
It's all right, I'll come back.
Yeah, it's like coming of age, but you've got to go through that passage.
You have to purge.
Purge, learn, grow, evolve. It's all about evolution. It's a rite of passage, and we have to take this opportunity that's before us right now. And it's a shame that we had to wait until Lebanon got so bad to wake up. But the time is now, and that's why I called it Lebanon's darkest hour. That comes from a Winston Churchill speech during World War II, because it was England's darkest hour. This is our darkest hour. Look, we are sitting in a beautiful place right now, but so did England, and there was still that class in every society, but the people on the streets, the average person is not in that situation. But what we're doing, what you guys are doing, is bringing awareness and shining that spotlight onto that group of people who don't have a voice, who don't normally get heard. And that is our role as people who are communicators.
Absolutely. I think, it's funny you mentioned evolution, because your documentary actually evolved with time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I identify with that, because I myself have also evolved through these exact periods from 2017, 2018, 2019 until now. And when I look back and I see people partying, I don't know, I can't get this out of my head. And I think about what I used to do in 2017 and, these glory days. And I think, how was it really a lie? Were we not really involved in politics to the point where we completely kind of, removed, or just didn't think about all these like sinister workings that were happening behind me? And it's very difficult to look back at these times and not think, why didn't we do something before? Right? And in your documentary, you actually speak to a friend of yours who is my friend, called Omar, and his lovely wife Hala. And you juxtapose how Omar is in 2021 after the August 4th blast, and how he was in 2018. And you speak about the 2018 elections and whether or not they were going to vote. And I think he was, like a lot of people, disenfranchised and just thought, the system is broken. There's not much we can do about it.
Yes,
right?
That's totally true.
So what do you think now? How do you think from 2018 until 2021, how do you think people's psyche has evolved towards the elections based on your interviews?
There's a great deal more people, especially the youth, who are very committed to change. And there's a lot of people who I think would be willing to vote if they know who to vote for. And at the moment, we're still in the dark about it. But I honestly believe that's coming, and it'll be revealed soon. But, I've had the opportunity, because I've been here for the last 2 months, and I've been in Ubers and Bolts and Kareems and whatever, and it's fantastic, because every time I get in one, I give them my card, watch my trailer, and they are like, wow, somebody's helping us. Thank you for... I said, it's my country as much as yours, and I'm, willing to do whatever I can. But the reality of the people's opinion, there still is some people who are like today's example. I was in a Bolt in a car, and he said he's going to put a white card, and he said, I'm not going to vote for them. I'm going to put a white card out. I'm going to show them. And I said, no. I said, that's exactly what they want you to do. If you don't vote for them, and there's propaganda that is used in media and through their channels, they tell you to put a white vote in. But the white vote means they're actually going to get that vote, because it's not a vote for anyone else, so no one else is going to beat them. So this is a very clear and important message that we really need to get out there. He said, what do you mean? I said, it's a political game. It's played around the world. You know, if they don't really want you to vote because they've got their people who are going to vote. And if you go and stick a white card in that box, that means the other people who are against them are not getting a vote. So you have to choose somebody other than them. Whoever it is that's standing against them, you vote for them. And he was like, thank you. I had no idea. This is all in Arabic, you know, my broken Arabic. I'm trying to explain it to him. And he said, واو ما عارف ماني عارف هيك. And I said لا هيدا المزبوط ما لازم تحط ورقة أبيض أبدا يعني.
This is our
Go ahead.
This is our mission. One day someone asked me because they know that we are working on the ground and we are in Mentishin and you know people always tell us in Lebanon, what are you gonna do? Where is the thawra? What are you know? And I said, you know, all of us, we have to do something. Talk to people around you, like you did with this driver. If you go to the Deccan, you know, and you ask them to vote. If you don't want to vote for someone, vote against them.
Yes.
Not with a white card.
Yes.
Vote against them, no matter who is in front.
Yes.
Vote against them. And this is a work that we all have to do.
Definitely.
Go and talk to people.
Yeah.
Every single person, the smallest, any conversation, you're 100% right.
I think the battle that we're trying to wage right now, if you can call it a battle, is twofold, right? On one end, you have to educate people. You have to show an entire generation like mine who was disenfranchised for the longest time, or an older generation who kind of had the same attitude that most of, let's say, the Lebanese people have, which is the system is broken, we can't do anything about it. So you have to educate them, not in a, you know, a holier than thou attitude, but you have to show them that there is some sort of change that can happen.
Yes.
Right? This is the political reality in Lebanon. This is what it has led to. And on the other hand, you also have to show them the alternative. And, you know, a lot of people try to, I don't know, like reproach the October 17 uprising as being, you know, a bit all over the place, not being really organized. But when you think about it, these things really need time. I mean, you're changing the fabric of society. You are telling people that they shouldn't resort to whatever Zaim or warlord they have to get their basic means of survival. They have to actually look towards the institutions, and it's a very difficult thing to reinstate trust in an institution that has been broken for so long. And that can only work with hope and by talking to people, seeing how everyone's pain is pretty much the same. Like we all have the same common denominator. We all are going through the same shit, we're all waiting on gas stations. We're all fighting for the least bit of medication. We're all calling our relatives or whatever network we have.
We don't have access to our money.
We all have, you know, we've all been robbed. So I think that's the only way, is to talk to people, to speak. And you're talking about class, about how, you know, we are living to a certain level of comfort. But just because you have the bare necessities does not mean you're actually living, right? We're surviving.
Of course.
I mean, we went down not because we can't put food on the table, but because we thought there was something inherently wrong. Medya, she went down for her son. I went for the fact that I wanted to stay in Lebanon. So everyone had their own reason to go down, and we're all united under one thing, which is rejecting the political status quo, and which is something that you portrayed brilliantly in the documentary by not only showing what the people in Lebanon have, but also showing what members of the diaspora have. So, which brings me to my question: how did you select these people, and what did you get out of it?
The diaspora?
The diaspora.
Look, I said to my crew from the beginning of the film, whoever's meant to be in this film will be in this film.
Okay.
We, like with the politicians, we submitted to every single one of them, all the parties and the main leaders, but, you know, Berri, Aoun, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah and Jumlat said no. So, you know.
Why?
But I put it out there, and I spoke to people in different countries, and like in Paris, it was actually a producer on the ground there who found people for us, like Darina Al-Jundi and you know, Antoine Sfer, who is amazing, and the others. They just know them better than I did, and we had people in different countries. You know, in Australia, I know people. In England, again, it was by chance. and they're all turned out to be perfect, and James Zugby, I've always followed him from when I was a journalist many, many years ago. I've loved him, and I think he's extraordinary.
Who is James Zugby for people who don't know?
Dr. James Zugby is the head of the Arab American Institute. And just to give you some more detail, like he had the Zugby poll. So every election for the last, 7 administrations, so back in the 60s and 70s, he's been around for a long time, he's 70-something, they would run the polls, which were the polls for the elections. And so every politician would be very focused on the Zugby poll. So they have this, the poll, but he also started the Arab American Institute.
So it was a clear indicator of, the political sentiment.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Who was going to win? You know how they run the polls, like, 3%, 4%, the margin of error kind of stuff. So he could tell who was going to be the winner. They could basically gauge who the winner would be. But also he's very a strong representative of Arab Americans, and he's a great spokesperson, and he's worked with every administration since Carter, representing Lebanese rights and Arab American rights, and he's had an extraordinary access to presidents and stuff. But so he's a very democratic, calm, intelligent, wise voice. He's not an aggressive, but he uses intelligence, and that's the way he's been able to work with all of these administrations and been able to influence policy. But, it's not possible all the time, but that's who he is, and he's an incredible, credible witness and interviewee.
I wanted to ask you about, since we're talking about the diaspora, how is, you've spoken to people in Australia, like the Lebanese diaspora in Australia. What is the general sentiment there? Have you spoken to multiple generations?
Yeah.
What is it about?
Look, the problem is that Australia, and I'm not sure, it is a bit like that in Canada and America too. We have an older generation that came out during the war, and generations from 1890s with the first Lebanese that migrated to Australia. But they're very stuck with the old Lebanon, and they're still very aligned to the leaders.
Sectarian kind of way of thinking because of the Civil War.
Yeah. So, but that's the old generation. But the younger generation, the second and third generations and fourth generations, are very different, and they have a real affinity with being Lebanese and love being Lebanese, but they don't understand Lebanon, and it's way too complicated. Even for me, it was very
even
complicated.
For us.
Yeah.
Even for us, we're still learning.
But we need to harness this, and we need to reach out to those people. Even my children, going back and forth, they came to Lebanon, but they have this will. I know I've been making the film for 5 years, and one of my daughters actually came on the second shoot with me and learnt so much. But they want what's right for Lebanon. They do want, justice for Lebanon, and you find that in the younger generations because they have a different experience, and that's who we need to be reaching out to. I remember Gibran Bassil came to Lebanon, to Australia for the LDE, and that's when I thought he was a good guy still, and I was looking at all the people around him. There's maybe 1,000 people at this event.
What's the LDE?
The Lebanon Diaspora Energy.
Okay.
And it was this movement he started. I don't know if you saw it, but it was 2018, 2019. He organised these events around the world, and it was a massive fundraising. That's all it was. He was going to bring the diaspora to Lebanon and give us our rights and open trade and open all these opportunities. And he, it was a very well organised event. If you look online, LDE, and you see the events in Los Angeles and New York and South America, the best of the best people are at these events and speakers, and they had forums and debates, and it was very well organised. And so you thought, wow, but it was really a mass fundraising for him and a mass boost for him, like he is this king. Honestly, that's how I look back at it now, and I just, with taking off the rose-colored glasses.
Well, he's the shadow president, isn't he? So
Totally, totally. It was just him trying to get, and this is just my opinion, but I honestly believed he wrote the law. You know how we're struggling right now with these 6 seats
Yes.
for the diaspora, and I honestly believe he manipulated it because he wrote it, the law, because he's so smart. He knows that if he gets the diaspora, that's 6 more seats for his party. He thought he was going to get those 6 seats for him, and it was going to be like a boon, and he was going to be pushed into the presidency, like, the heir apparent. And now we've got the crisis that we're going through about the 6 seats and the 128, whether who we vote for. But he's a very shrewd politician. No one should underestimate him. The way that he's manipulated President Aoun, I used to adore President Aoun. I came to Lebanon in 1989. I was under the Asaf at Babda. I was here, because he was standing against Syria, and I was there. But, sadly,
it wasn't the case.
What a disappointment.
Huge.
I think we made that mistake a lot. We kind of underestimated the political class. We, obviously they all fumble, they all make mistakes, especially when Gibran Bassil actually went to that summit.
Yes,
with
Davos.
With the Davos summit. I mean, he ridiculed himself. He actually asked world governments to take a page out of Lebanon's book on how to function without a government, which is ridiculous, obviously.
Shocking.
But they are shrewd. They are politicians after all, and they know the inner workings, and that gives them a crazy advantage on how they can operate. And so we shouldn't underestimate them.
Never.
Can you really underestimate a political system that has been so ingrained in our country for 30 years? No, you fucking can't.
No.
More than 30 years.
More than 30
if
years.
you take the war also, it's more than
100%.
45 years.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's very scary, and it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, thinking that how could have these people been able to function for so long without us really noticing what's happening? But now I think it was the last straw on the camel's back, and we have to kind of move forward, right?
When we watch your documentary, what is very interesting, it's you interviewed Alain Bifani. When was it, this interview?
In October 2020.
Okay.
After he'd resigned.
And he was talking about how he knew that $6 billion were struggling. And no, not smuggling.
Smuggled out of the country, yes.
Yes, struggling also.
Well, they're struggling to get out.
Yes. And it's very interesting because a few days ago, you have this Swiss
probe
newspaper that said that Riyad Saleh knew that there were a crisis, and we were talking about 2017, and he removed these 14 pages from the IMF report saying that we're going to have a crisis in Lebanon, and because he wanted to show to people abroad and to
manipulate them
and to put money and again. And it's very interesting because you see this in your documentary, and you realize that everything that they were saying at this time happened. Because you interviewed also Riyad Saleh, and you said what happened with him after that, and saying that everything that he did till now, it's legal.
How is it interviewing? Sorry,
he claims it's legitimate.
Yes,
he claims.
Yeah.
Yes, but this is why all the probes in the UK, France, Switzerland, all of the investigations and OCCRP, they're fantastic. They do. They're amazing with their unraveling of the corruption. But, and he's sitting there saying, it's very difficult in this day. When I was interviewing him, the list of boards and, the positions he held globally, the International Anti-Corruption Money Laundering Association, he's like the chairman. And I'm thinking, wow, this man is so well respected. He must be so honest.
He was awarded.
Yes, he was awarded best central bank governor.
The guy wrote the book. Of course he knows where the holes are.
OJ is going to find the real killer, that kind of dynamic.
Exactly.
But it was, so I'm innocently sitting there thinking, oh, he's telling me, it's really hard, with banking secrecy laws now and banking laws. And I said, oh, okay, because I'm trying to think, can they hide it overseas? And he said, yes, if there's, cooperation. He said cooperation. Alain Bafani says collusion. And he's the biggest colluder with the banks overseas. But my problem and my question is, and this is, another documentary, is the banks overseas. The banks overseas are in collusion with corrupt leaders, and they're holding the money that belongs to the Lebanese people in their banks. And why aren't they being probed by their own governments and corruption institutions? And why aren't they being investigated? Because they know everything. Of course, they know everything.
And you give. Sorry. There are not only interviews in your documentary, there are a lot of graphics to explain to people what's going on in Lebanon. And you were saying about the banks that 45% are owned by politicians. And you wanted to talk about some.
No, I want this. That was exactly the point that I wanted to bring up, meaning that it's ridiculous how the private sector has become the public sector. We were speaking to a fellow of ours called Taimur Azhari, who told us that there was someone who actually told him that the private sector needs to be privatized because it's completely dominated by, people that are, partisans or frontmen for this political elite.
Yes.
It's ridiculous, and it's very dangerous.
And, I was, last night we had ambassadors at a private screening for the film, and it was, maybe about 20 of them, and they were shocked by the, we've exposed them on screen, and they were worried for my life in English. And but this is, when you put it up, the thing as a journalist, when you put it in print or you put it in film, it can't be rubbed away anymore. It stays forever. It's historical data. And this is the thing that, why our role as journalists and historians and documentarians and what you're doing too, it becomes part of a anthology of information that people can refer to. And it's like what I did. I had to research and I dug in whoever. I didn't care who the source was. I had to verify the source. But that is the importance of what we do. But when you put it in, colour on screen, it's shocking because in the ambassador circuit, they hear these things, they hear this, and they're busy doing their job as ambassadors, and they get busy. Their role is not to investigate the government of the day. They've got to do what they're supposed to do. So when you put a story like that for them and you bring all of the elements together, it was shocking for them. And
so what did you tell them? Did they come to you at later after the screening? Was there a conversation that was held?
Yes, after the screening, they came up to me and we were talking and they were making comments. And, the UK ambassador was saying this is significantly important, and we have to do something. We do have influence, we do have power, and the Italian and the Swiss and many of them, there was an awakening even on another level, because whilst they sort of whisper in their diplomatic circles, which that's what diplomacy is, right? Information and you try and deal with it in a way that is not going to rock the boat, but try and move things in the right direction, or tell people you better fix yourself up because we know this. But when you expose it in such a way,
they feel like they have to do something, right? Because it's out there and they feel like left out if
like
they don't
us,
do anything.
because till 2019, we were always hearing there is corruption, but we didn't know how much, we didn't know how. We didn't know who exactly.
Yes.
And now everything is there with all the alternative medias, with all everything happened. Now we know, and they don't hide.
No,
this is what is very frustrating. Yani, we all know what they did, and you're talking about the implication of we say implication,
Yes.
of Walid Jumblat in the garbage crisis, and it's shocking. I was shocked because I didn't know all these details and information about him. And it's horrible. And you were talking about this garbage crisis and saying that there were links between Jumblat and there is Saad Hariri and all this landfill that they have to own. And this is why we didn't get out of this crisis.
Yeah.
So you are giving a lot of information, and I'm sure that the ambassadors were shocked because we were shocked also because we didn't know. We were living in an illusion till the Thawra.
Yes, I mean, it's an incestuous relationship between the private and the public sector. And now you can understand why it is so difficult to dismantle this political class, because they literally have their hands and feet and whatever appendage you want to call in every single aspect of government and in the public and private sector. So that is why I think the moral of the story is that we have to reject them all. But how do we do that? You mentioned before, when you spoke to these ambassadors, you kind of pressed them into promoting this fair and equitable kind of voting process in the diaspora, right?
Yes.
Because that's the only card that we have to play.
Exactly. And if you noticed at the end of the film, there was one card that said, join the movement for change, # free and fair Lebanon. Look, my purpose at the end of making this film was to agitate, well, first of all, educate, agitate and provoke action, because I wasn't going to make an analytical film, because analytical films, people take them in and then they say, oh, that's a shame, what, poor Lebanon, and they'll go and watch the next film. This, like I said, this is our chance. This was my chance. And for us, I had to do something that was emotive, that agitated people to take action. And I said, I need to channel the energy into something. And we didn't know anything about the new political parties or movements yet. It was still forming. They were still developing. But I said, if we could start something, even if it's a petition, to get them to register. sign a petition for free and fair Lebanon, which means the first most important thing is to have free and fair elections in Lebanon next year. Free and fair might sound like a simple expression, but in the global world of politics, free and fair is a gold standard. It is written, if you Google it, it means this, and every government in the world aspires to free and fair. And even to this day, there is not one government in the world that has achieved free and fair elections without, like in its purest sense. So it's an aspiration. So I just wanted to give people something simple to sign on to. But this is not just my movement. It's the start of something. Sign the petition, register to vote, and learn more about who to vote for in the elections when we know. It was the only thing I could start doing, because we don't know yet, and today we still don't know who's standing in the elections, where the candidates are, what the parties are going to be. But this was all moving people to be able to use the energy and the
exercise
anger
their right,
and to motivate them. But there's the almost militarize them into some sort of action.
Absolutely.
And so, but this has become bigger than me or the film. The film makes you aware. It's the education piece. And so in the couple of months I've been here, I've talked to Mintashireen and I've talked to many organisations, and I said, look, this is not my petition. This has to be our petition, and we need to all just put it under our banner, like we who are in the collective opposition, we who are all united against this group of people, sign this petition and stand for this, and this is what we want. If the first move that we do is have free and fair elections and demand the governments of the Western world and the rest of the world enforce that rule upon this regime.
Exactly.
And use their influence and their power to force this government to allow us to have free and fair elections. And I'll share that with you, because what free and fair means is quite unique, because there are 8 rules you have to stand by. And it means that every citizen has the right to vote. It means that your citizens are allowed to stand in elections. It means that you have, if it's not convenient for you to vote in a particular ballot, that there is another method that I'm allowed to exercise my right to vote. And this means the diaspora too has the right to vote, and they're trying to stop the diaspora from voting. And so we're hoping to launch that petition and this initial stages of this movement with all the groups, because we had this screening for the groups and organizations a few weeks ago. And I said, let's all do this together, because let me tell you another reason why. Because the Western world and governments do not believe the Lebanese are united. And one of the biggest arguments I get from politicians outside Lebanon is, well, the Lebanese voted for these people, you got what you voted for. And the Lebanese are divided. You're all, you're all little groups and you don't stand together. And so we don't have to be one party. They're not one party. The people ruling are not one party, but we need to be united on something simple. We can't all agree right now because there's so many groups, as you know. You've got your own tenets and mandates, and you're entitled to have your own tenets and mandates, absolutely. But if you're at least all against the establishment and all for this, which is the most beautiful ideal that every government in the world and anyone who believes in justice and democracy will support us, even if they're not Lebanese, will support us for, because that's what they want for themselves.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing about, all coming together, because this means we show a united face to the world, a united group, a collective who are mature, who are civilized, who are educated, who are using democratic means to serve our democratic rights. And it's a very simple thing. I know someone said, another petition. I said, okay, but the problem with the diaspora is they're saying to us, there's so many petitions, there's so many groups, there's so many organizations. Who do we go to? Who do we follow? Who do we support? And so that was another piece on this to say, could we just all together come and support free and fair Lebanon?
Yeah.
And we put our names here, and then we just say, we give you a window, because we have an opportunity with the film traveling around the world. We're getting to speak to thousands of people, and they're going to ask us questions as they are now, and we want to direct them to something.
Absolutely.
If we direct them to this and they see your names here, they'll say, okay, these are the groups that we should follow, find out about, research. And we can't tell them who to vote for. It's up to them. But we can at least expose them to your organisations and our organisations, because they're my organisations, that are standing for what we all want for Lebanon.
Because in the documentary, you give this graphic also about the last election in 2018.
Yes.
Only 49% of people who were registered in Lebanon voted. Only 49%. And only 30% of the youth voted. And I think that they're going to make a big change now, because this young Lebanese know that they want to change, and they really want it.
Yeah.
And on 1 million expats that can vote, only 47,000 voted in the last election. So when you show these numbers again and again in your documentary or on the platform تبع صوتي كلنا إرادة نحو الوطن, it's very important for everybody to vote here and abroad. It's
Absolutely.
very important. And I think that if they pass this law for 6 seats, that it's ridiculous, because we know that the expat have the right to vote in their own district.
It shouldn't be discouraging.
Yes, they
And
have
that's
to
part of the
register.
free and
They still
fair
have till the November 20 to
Yes.
register and to see if their names are in the records.
Yes.
And if no, they have to go to their embassies to register. But I think that the big change will come from the youth.
Yeah.
Because 30% is a very low number and they really have to vote. And that's why it's still 21 years old. And this is why we
Yes.
did this many campaigns, please. And they won't do it.
Because
people,
they know that.
They know that if they can vote at 18th, it will make a very huge change. But I think that the youth is going to vote this time after the revolution in October 19, and especially after the blast.
Yeah.
A lot of things changed. And you met a lot of people doing this documentary for 5 years now.
Yes.
And I think that you felt the change. No, when you met
massive shift from 2017, 2018 to now. And on that point of the youth, I want to say this. If the youth can win this, the youth of Lebanon alone can win the next elections. Look, you do the math. If you do the math, they have the greatest power. And now the youth number has grown because it's been 4 years. There's more people who are over 21 now. They alone could win this election for Lebanon. If they block the diaspora from voting, the Lebanese in Lebanon can win this. But we in the diaspora, but I'm going to come and vote here because I got my passport, which I actually brought with me just in case to show that I decided there's no chance of them stopping me. I took 4 weeks to finally get it, but I'm coming to vote here. But I want to say that honestly, the youth of Lebanon alone can win this election and change. They can win enough seats to make a difference. We can't eliminate every single one of these guys. Like it's not going to happen. And that's that unless there's violence and bloodshed, and we just don't want that. But the youth alone, if they come out in their full numbers, will make a massive difference.
Absolutely.
And yes, you're right. In 2018, when I was here, and the youth were apathetic, they're sitting in the cafes, they're drinking their coffees, they're having their iced lattes, and life is good. And you still see some of them now, but it's very different energy in the cafes. You go, there's a completely different energy to the nonchalant, I'm fine, I'll get on with it. And the poor Omar, he's just my example. God, I love him. But he's just an example of what the majority opinion was at that time. But, you've seen him change, and that's a big deal. Yeah. And, you're 100% right. There's a shift, a massive shift.
I just want to go back to the point you made about how some people might not know who the opposition is, and rightfully so. But what kind of maybe rubbed me off the wrong way is when you spoke about how these world leaders also use that narrative.
Yes.
Right. I have a message to these world leaders, if they're watching. How about they stop giving a bloody lifeline to these politicians every single time? I mean, you portrayed Macron in the documentary. He was benevolent, he came with the right mindset. But I feel that he also gave a lifeline to this political class. And unfortunately, he channeled the behavior away or the frustration that we had from the August 4th explosion. And he told us to give them a chance, or try to kind of put them in the ranks. And he put like a few standards that he should form a government by this date or that date. And they laughed him off the bloody stage. And this also happened when for those who don't know, me and Media were part of this civic movement effort called Base Camp after the August 4th explosion, where we set up a camp which had food distribution, which had engineers and architects try to assess the damage and try to provide whatever sustenance we could afford for people that had their livelihoods and their lives destroyed. And you did have a few politicians that passed by and tried to, pay their respects. And the message that we had every single time one of them came is, do not bail them out. Do not fucking bail them out.
Yes.
Do not give them that lifeline that they need and they yearn for to re-legitimize themselves. And this is the only thing. Okay, you don't know who the opposition is. Fine, you will know at a later stage. But stop pandering to these people. Stop dealing with the devil.
Exactly.
Because there isn't a worse devil than that. There's from the political class, the only way to go is up. And yeah, that's my message to these people. I mean, it's frustrating, but
Yes.
I think we'll get
Very.
there, right?
100% agree with you, and you're right. They have to stop giving that lifeline and funding them, and they sort of started with preventing, not giving them that $11 billion that they agreed to in Cedar, but they're about to get some money now, and I'm that's why I was talking to the ambassadors last night saying, you're funding the government, especially for the next elections. I think there's 60 million euros that are going to be given to the government to host elections. Demand that international independent monitors are present, and demand that they be given more scope to be able to have greater oversight of the entire process of the voting process. And one of the ambassadors, I won't mention it just in case she doesn't like it, but said, well, we are only allowed to do what they give us permission to. I said, but you're giving them the money. Demand it or they don't get the money. You have the power to say, no, this is the scope for our monitors. We're going to oversee the full process, or you're not going to get the money. And, it was interesting, the body language. And I said, you have to use your influence now. The Lebanese deserve that our voice be recorded accurately, that if we go to these elections and we get to vote honestly and fairly, and we pick the same people again, then we're fucking idiots. Excuse my language.
Absolutely, no, you can.
Okay,
we're
that's
definitely
it.
fucking idiots.
We're fucking idiots, and we deserve what we get. But at least let us have the right to put our voice in, because the previous elections were not free and fair. There was vote tampering. We just want that. And they took it on board. And we have to work, especially with diplomats, it's slowly, carefully. You can't give them too much. But that is something that can definitely happen. And I was on a webinar with the National Council of Arab American Relations a couple of days ago too, where we talked about that. And I asked them, I said, look, if, because they're involved in that sort of, they have a great access and influence on lobbying in America. And I said the same thing. I said, we want free and fair elections. We want the right for our voice to be heard. And if we fuck it up, we fuck it up. But let us have our say.
Yeah. Me and Media know a few of our friends are anarchists, and they look at the democratic process as, something that's not really going to happen. It's not really going to change much. And I understand them. They have been duped multiple times. I've been duped. We all have been duped into thinking before that we could do some change. And I think right now we have no other option. We try to resort to some sort of anarchy, which is going down to the protests, which is voicing our concerns. And we were met with militias coming down and beating us up. We were met with the army shooting at us with live ammunition. And that was when, I think it was on August 8th, when several of our friends went to the hospital because of being shot and having shards of grenades lodged into their bodies, when we realized that you do need that political pressure on the ground, definitely. But you also have to
agitate it.
You have to translate that fervor that you see on the street towards a democratic process. You can't have one without the other. No. You can't just hope for an institutional change through democratic process without having a presence on the ground. And you can't just have a presence on the ground without actually going through these democratic processes. So it has to be a joint effort between both. The same way it has to be a twofold battle where you educate, empower, and agitate, as you said, towards these ballot boxes. So it's not easy. It's a long road. Again, we're changing the fabric of society, and we can only hope for the best. Right?
Yeah. Somebody said to me even last night, if there's fraud in the elections and they manipulate the boxes as they did in the last one, I said, look, there's always going to be some vote tampering. But they can't tamper with 3 million votes. They can tamper with a smaller number. But if we come out in our droves, it's impossible for them. They can change a few numbers and boxes in different seats, but that's why it's important for all of us to vote, because they can't change 2 million votes.
No, and they can not make all the dead people and the dead Lebanese people vote. It's incredible what they did.
What happened?
They people were dead, okay, that person, and they voted. They
So they were
supposedly
deceased,
voted.
yeah.
So you have votes from people that are not alive anymore.
Yeah, so you had multiple kinds of fraud, right? You
Yes.
had dead people voting. You had ballot boxes magically disappearing, votes. And you, at some point, wasn't there like a blackout or something? And suddenly
Yes, and
a few things changed.
Really?
yeah, and they give the nationality to
Syrians.
Syrians,
To Syrian refugees.
It's
They weaponize refugees.
Yeah.
yeah.
They give them the nationality in order to buy a few more votes. I mean, it's really sinister what you can see. And I suggest just do a human shield, right? Just be behind the ballot box, try to monitor the entire thing. If
Yes.
you have international agencies that try to help, great. I personally don't think that if it's without us, they are not going to resort to anything. So it has to be a joint effort between international institutions with us.
I remember when we had the municipality election. There
Of
were
Beirut.
Yes, of Beirut. There were Beirut Madinati that uprised from all this political class, and all of us went to the street. I don't vote in Beirut. I vote in Tripoli, but I was there, and we were giving the right list to people because they changed the list, and if there is a name misspelled on the list is not.
It becomes void.
It becomes void. So we were on every door, everywhere that they could vote here in Ashrafiyeh. We were giving the right list and said, be careful, don't take this list. This is the good one. This is the real one. So yes, we can do it on a personal level and be there and say to people, remember, if they gave you money, take the money, but don't vote for them.
Yes.
You can do it. They won't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I refuse
Apparently
that
they
idea.
will a bit, but anyway, that's
No, not for everybody.
not for everyone.
everybody.
100%.
You know, a lot of people said that people are going to take that money, right, and they're going to vote for the same person. I completely understand it, right, because they put us in a certain situation where you have to get whatever means you can in order for you to survive. But I refuse to accept that idea that we are willing to sell whatever destiny we have to
For $100 or
$100.
Yes.
Right? If that's the case, fuck this country.
Yeah.
Hopefully
You're right.
people will do the right thing. I keep on saying do the right thing and keep on saying hoping. And I believe we reached the end of this podcast, and I think the concept or the theme of hope has been prevalent in every single thing that we were saying. So our question to you is,
في أمل? Asking it to you in Arabic. I think that you're going to answer yes, that there
Would
is
I
hope.
be here? I'm actually moving back to Lebanon next year.
oh,
No
wow.
way. The
You
reaction.
really have a lot of hope.
I'm moving back here because I said to
Before
my
or after
kids-
the election?
No, before the elections. Oh, definitely. Because I said I can't help Lebanon from Australia, and this is my purpose right now is Lebanon. And I've been very lucky with all of my life and opportunities. And you get to a point in your life where it's time to contribute and give back. And this is where I'm at in my life right now. And that's what I want to do. And there's nothing more important to me. And, when there's this saying, just imagine yourself lying on your deathbed in hospital. What would you regret not having done? And this is one of the things, if I don't do it, and I would regret not having tried. So this is important. And I love it. I just love this, the people, the lifestyle, the life, the energy of Lebanon, the way of being. And it's not saying I don't love Australia. I do. And Sydney's beautiful and we live in a very beautiful area. But it's that important to me.
You realize like you're coming back to Lebanon from a first world country to a third world country, right?
It's not even fourth.
If everyone was asking me, you want to get a Lebanese passport? Are you crazy?
Yeah, I mean,
wet
how long have you been outside of Lebanon for?
51 years, because I'm 56. I was 5 when we
And
left.
so that new sense of, you know, belonging to Lebanon got, you know, entrenched in you right now, right?
No. I mean, it's been entrenched since I was 23, because before 23, nothing. But it grew. It's grown more and more. But this last, I didn't know I was going to be doing, like I said, the beginning of this film, 2016, 2017, I didn't know I was going to feel this way. But it happened since the last 12 months or so. It was like,
Oh, right now, recently.
I need to move to Lebanon. I'm done. I've got my company in Australia. I love them. My staff are amazing and they've been looking after the company and God bless them, but I haven't told them yet.
The title is enough. What was it in the first place when you started in 2017?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dream is everything.
Oh, wow.
And after the dream, I said, fuck the dream. There's no dream left anymore. No one's dreaming, baby. It's like, it's enough.
Absolutely.
Khalas.
Well, Daizy, it was really a pleasure having you. Shukran ala Sarde. And for people
Thank
who
you.
want to find this documentary, you're saying that if it's going to get banned, where can they watch it? What is the process right now and where can they find you?
If they just go onto my handles on social media, Daizy Gedeon, Daizy with a Z, D-A-I-Z-Y, Gedeon. Everything's on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, and we're releasing as things are happening. We're releasing it. Like, we're still in festival mode at the moment. We're going to Chelsea in New York next week for the Chelsea Film Festival. We've got Arlington. We've got Fort Lauderdale. We've got quite a few more festivals, but we will be releasing the film in December, January, February. In Australia, our distributors we were going to be releasing in February because of COVID, but now it's going to be December. So it's coming to your screen in Australia very soon. But the Middle East, our distributors in the Middle East are hoping Lebanon first in December, but if it gets banned, it'll be the rest of the Middle East, and then we'll come to Lebanon through streaming and TV. It'll definitely be out on TVs, I hope, like a month before the elections, because every single Lebanese person needs to see it and it'll be in Arabic. They've dubbed my voice.
Lovely.
Beautiful Natalie has voiced I sound so beautiful in Arabic. Lebanese. So it'll be really good. It's so they just should follow the movement and follow the movie, I think, and they'll find out everything, because the dates aren't locked in yet for release.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me and giving me
Absolutely. It's a
this
pleasure.
opportunity. Thank you.